The morning fog clung to RAF Thorpe Abbotts like a wet blanket, thick enough to taste. It was October 14, 1943, a Thursday that would be remembered by the 8th Air Force as Black Thursday, though the men gathered in the briefing room at 0400 hours didn't know that yet. Captain Robert Dutch Vandermeer stood at the back of the room, arms crossed, watching Colonel Hayes pull the curtain aside to reveal the red ribbon stretching across the map of Europe. The collective groan was immediate. Schweinfurt. Again. "Gentlemen, this is our second run at the ball-bearing factories," Hayes said, his voice flat, drained of the enthusiasm that had colored earlier briefings. "Intelligence estimates minimal fighter resistance over." "Bullshit," someone muttered from the third row. Hayes didn't acknowledge it. He didn't need to. Every man in that room knew intelligence had been wrong before. Often. Fatally. Dutch turned to his crew, seated together in the front left section. Lieutenant James Kelly, his co-pilot, was chewing gum so hard his jaw looked like it might break. Navigator Bill Henderson stared at the map with eyes that hadn't slept in 2 days. Bombardier Tony Ricci cracked his knuckles one by one, a nervous habit that drove the radio man, Mickey Cohen, insane. "We're flying the Memphis Belle too," Dutch said quietly, leaning down between Kelly and Henderson. "She's been checked, double-checked, and blessed by every Catholic, Protestant, and whatever the hell Mickey is." "Jewish, Captain," Mickey said without looking up. "And I already said Kaddish for all of us. That's the spirit." The briefing continued with numbing precision. Altitude, 25,000 feet. Formation, tight combat box. Expected flak over target, heavy. Fighter escort, P-47 Thunderbolts as far as the Belgian border, then nothing until the return leg. They'd be naked over Germany for 2 hours. 2 hours of Me-109s and FW-190s. 2 hours of 20mm cannons and rockets. 2 hours of watching B-17s turn into fireballs and spiral down. Men tumbling out without parachutes or with parachutes on fire or not tumbling at all, just strapped in their seats as the bomber corkscrewed into the earth. Dutch had seen it 32 times in 6 months. Dismissed. Wheels up at 0630. "God be with you." The men filed out into the pre-dawn darkness. Somewhere in the distance, engines coughed to life, one by one, a mechanical choir warming up for a death mass. Dutch walked the hard stand alone, circling the Memphis Belle 2 with a flashlight, checking every rivet, every panel, every access hatch. She was AB-17F, serial number 42 to 30,177, with 53 missions painted on her nose. Small yellow bombs beneath a cartoon pin-up girl holding a wrench. 53 times she'd gone to Germany. 53 times she'd come back. "You're gonna make it 54, sweetheart," Dutch whispered, running his hand along the cold aluminum. "Just get us there and back. That's all I'm asking." The ground crew chief, Master Sergeant William Pops O'Hara, appeared from under the wing, oil-stained rag in his belt. "She's ready, Captain. All 4 engines purring like kittens. Oxygen topped off. Guns loaded and sighted. Even patched that hole in the tail from Dusseldorf. You're a magician, Pops. I'm Irish. Same thing." Pops paused, lit a cigarette, offered one to Dutch. Both men smoked in silence for a moment. "This one feels different, sir." "Can't explain it. They all feel different." "No. This one's wrong. Weather's wrong. Timing's wrong. I've been doing this since 42, Captain. I know when something's off." Dutch wanted to argue, but he couldn't. Pops was right. Everything about this mission felt off. The fog was too thick. The intelligence too confident. The colonel's voice too hollow. "If we don't come back, Pops, you'll come back. If we don't, make sure my letters get to. You'll come back, Captain. She always brings you back." At 0627 hours, The Memphis Belle II trembled as her four Wright R-1820 Cyclone engines roared to full throttle. Dutch released the brakes and the bomber lurched forward, picking up speed, the runway lights flashing past like tracer rounds. At 110 miles per hour, he pulled back on the yoke and the earth fell away. They climbed through the fog, through the clouds, breaking into clear sky at 8,000 feet. Around them, the formation was assembling. 230 B-17s forming up in their combat boxes, silver crosses glinting in the early sun. "Navigator, confirm heading," Dutch said into the intercom. "Heading 105, Captain. ETA to IP, 2 hours, 43 minutes. Ball turret, test your guns." From below, Staff Sergeant Eddie Ramos fired a short burst. The .50 caliber machine guns hammered briefly, then went silent. "All guns operational, Captain. Skies clear. Not even a seagull." That should have been comforting. It wasn't. They flew east, into the rising sun, into Germany, into whatever was waiting for them over Schweinfurt. And somewhere in the belly of the Memphis Belle II, in a sealed compartment behind the bomb bay that no one on the crew knew existed, something else was flying with them. Something that would make every report about this mission disappear. Something that would turn 53 missions into a ghost story. The English Channel passed beneath them like hammered steel, gray and endless. Dutch kept his eyes on the lead bomber, Hell's Angel flown by Major Richards, maintaining tight formation. In combat box formation, survival meant staying close. A straggler was a dead man. Crossing Belgian coast, Henderson announced. Flak expected in 3 minutes. Right on schedule, black flowers bloomed in the sky ahead. The Germans had been tracking them since takeoff, radar stations along the coast feeding positions to flak batteries inland. The first shells burst 2,000 feet below, ranging shots, walking up toward the formation. Then they hit altitude. The Memphis Belle II shuddered as a shell exploded 50 feet off the port wing. Shrapnel pinged against the fuselage like steel rain. Another burst directly ahead, close enough that Dutch could smell the cordite through the oxygen mask. "Flak, 11 o'clock level," waist gunner Johnny Martinez shouted. "I can see it, Martinez," Dutch said, gripping the yoke tighter. "You couldn't dodge flak. You just flew through it and prayed the shells had someone else's name on them." The barrage lasted 4 minutes. 4 minutes of flying through exploding sky, of watching B-17s shed pieces, a wingtip here, an engine there, an entire tail section tumbling away like a broken toy. A bomber from the 384th Bomb Group took a direct hit in the bomb bay and simply ceased to exist, transformed from machine to mist in a fraction of a heartbeat. 15 men gone before they'd even seen a fighter. Then they were through. The flak fell behind. Ahead lay the long stretch to the initial point, the IP, where they'd turn toward Schweinfurt and begin their bomb run. Ahead lay the hunting ground. Bandits. 2 o'clock high. The call came from above, from the top turret where Technical Sergeant Frank Eyes Kowalski sat cramped in his plexiglass bubble, scanning the sky with the vigilance of a man who knew death came fast at 300 miles per hour. Dutch saw them, black specks against the blue, diving out of the sun. Messerschmitt 109s, a dozen at least, maybe more. They came in pairs, attacking the high squadron first, 20mm cannons winking fire. Here they come. All gunners, weapons free. The sky erupted. 50 caliber machine guns hammered from every B-17 in the formation, creating a curtain of lead. The Memphis Belle II's 10 guns added to the storm. Top turret, ball turret, waist guns, tail gun, nose guns, all firing, all converging on the incoming fighters. An Me-109 flashed past so close Dutch could see the pilot's face, young and terrified, before the fighter rolled and dove away trailing smoke. "Got him!" Kowalski screamed. Splashed one. But there were more. Always more. Focke-Wulf 190s now, attacking from dead ahead, the most dangerous angle. They came head-on at closing speeds exceeding 500 miles per hour, firing everything, cannons, machine guns, rockets, before breaking away at the last possible second. The bomber ahead of them, Lucky Strike, took a rocket to the cockpit. The fighter broke left. Lucky Strike didn't break at all. It just nosed over and started the long fall, 10 men already dead. "Fighters, 6 o'clock level," tail gunner Pete Simmons called out. "Coming in fast." Dutch felt the tail gun hammering, felt the whole aircraft shaking. Through the intercom, he heard Simmons grunting, swearing, firing, firing, firing. Then silence. Simmons. "Status." "Nothing." "Simmons, report." "He's hit." Martinez shouted from the waist. "Christ, Captain, he's hit bad." "I'm going back." "Stay at your gun." "Henderson, go check on him." Henderson unbuckled, made his way aft, crawling through the narrow fuselage. 30 seconds later, "He's alive, Captain." "Took shrapnel in the shoulder." "I've got pressure on it." "He'll make it." Dutch exhaled. "One wounded." Still flying. Still fighting. The attacks continued for an hour. Wave after wave of German fighters, probing for weakness, isolating stragglers, hammering away at the formation. The Memphis Belle II took hits, holes in the wings, a shattered window in the radio room, a hydraulic line severed, but nothing critical. She kept flying. She always kept flying. At 1,140 hours, Henderson's voice came through the intercom, different now, tight with something Dutch couldn't identify. "Captain, I need you to see something. Little busy up here, Henderson." "Sir, I really need you to see this. Now." Something in his tone made Dutch glance at Kelly. "You got this." "Yeah, go." Dutch unbuckled, made his way through the bomb bay, carefully, always carefully, walking on the narrow catwalk with 25,000 feet of nothing below, and found Henderson standing in front of a panel he'd never noticed before. A panel that, Dutch realized, shouldn't be there. "What am I looking at?" "I was trying to reroute oxygen from the damaged line," Henderson said. "Found this. It's not on any schematic I've ever seen." It was a hatch, small, maybe 2 feet square, secured with a lock that had no business being on a B-17. A lock that required a key Dutch didn't have. "When did this get installed?" "I don't know, sir." "But there's something behind it." "I can hear it." Dutch pressed his ear to the cold metal. Henderson was right. There was something behind that panel. Something humming. Something that sounded almost like breathing. "Captain, we're approaching the IP," Kelly's voice crackled in his headset. "Need you back up here." Dutch stared at the panel for another moment, then made his decision. "Henderson, seal this off. Don't let anyone near it. We'll deal with it after we drop." He crawled back through the bomb bay, climbed back into the left seat, strapped in. Ahead, Schweinfurt appeared through the haze, a sprawl of factories and rail yards, already obscured by smoke from the first wave of bombers. Flak batteries opened up, filling the sky with black death. "Bomb bay doors open," Ricci announced from the nose. "I've got the target." "Steady, steady." The Memphis Belle II shuddered as the doors swung open, the airframe suddenly less aerodynamic, more vulnerable. They were locked in now, committed to the bomb run, flying straight and level while German gunners walked their shells closer, closer. "Bombs away." The aircraft lurched upward as 4,000 pounds of high explosives fell free. Ricci's voice again. "Good drop. Good drop. Closing doors." Dutch banked hard left, following the formation away from the target, away from the flak, back toward England, toward home. But home was 3 hours away. And behind them, in that sealed compartment, something was still humming. Still waiting. They were 40 minutes west of Schweinfurt when it happened. The formation had thinned, 62 bombers lost to flak and fighters, 62 fortresses that wouldn't see England again. The survivors flew in ragged boxes, wounded birds limping home, trailing smoke and oil, prayers and curses. The Memphis Belle II had taken more damage on the egress. A 20mm shell through the radio room. 2 engines showing oil pressure drops. The number 3 engine running rough, cylinders misfiring. But she was flying. Pops had been right. She always brought them back. Dutch was calculating fuel consumption, measuring the miles against their remaining tanks, when Kowalski's voice exploded through the intercom. Unidentified aircraft. 12 o'clock high. What the hell is that? Dutch looked up through the windscreen. At first he thought it was a reflection, a trick of the sun on the plexiglass. Then he realized Kelly was seeing it too. So was Ricci in the nose. So was every man in every bomber within visual range. It hung in the sky above them, motionless despite a 150-knot headwind, maybe 2 miles up. Not a fighter. Not a bomber. Not anything Dutch had ever seen in training films or intelligence briefings. It was disc-shaped, metallic, maybe 60 feet across. No wings. No propellers. No exhaust. Just hanging there like a silver coin suspended in blue water. "What is that?" Kelly whispered. "I don't know." "Captain, the compass is spinning," Henderson called out. "Magnetic headings gone crazy. Showing north at 3 different bearings." "Radio's dead," Cohen added. "Not damaged dead. Just empty. Like someone switched off the atmosphere." The disk began to move. Not flying. Not falling. Moving. It descended through the formation like it was on rails, perfectly controlled, impossibly smooth. It passed within 500 feet of the Memphis Belle II's starboard wing. Dutch could see it clearly now. The seamless surface, no rivets, no panels, just unbroken metal that seemed to drink light rather than reflect it. There was a hum, low and resonant, that he felt more than heard, a vibration that went through the airframe and into his chest and made his teeth ache. "Guns on target," he ordered. "Don't fire unless I give the word." Every gun in the Memphis Belle II tracked the object. Every gunner's finger was on the trigger. Every gunner was holding his breath. The disk stopped between 2 bomber formations, equidistant from 5 B-17s, including theirs. Then it did something impossible. Light erupted from its underside, not an explosion, not muzzle flash, but pure white light that formed into beams, 5 distinct beams connecting the disk to 5 bombers like spokes on a wheel. The hum became a roar, became a pressure that squeezed Dutch's skull from the inside. And then, nothing. The light vanished. The disk was gone. Not flying away, not diving down. Just gone, as if someone had cut it out of reality with scissors. The compass steadied. The radio hissed back to life. The engines kept turning. For 10 seconds, nobody spoke. Then Kelly said what they were all thinking. "What the fuck was that?" Dutch keyed the intercom. "Crew check-in. Everyone all right?" One by one they responded. Shaken. Confused. But alive. "Henderson, check that compartment. Now." Henderson unbuckled, moved aft. Dutch heard him working the hatch, heard the scrape of metal on metal, heard. "Captain, you need to see this." Dutch looked at Kelly. Kelly looked back, his face pale. "I've got the aircraft, sir." The compartment was open. Inside was equipment Dutch didn't recognize. Metal cylinders arranged in a circle, wires running between them, vacuum tubes glowing faint purple. And in the center, a device the size of a shoebox, humming the same hum they'd heard from the disk. "What is this?" Henderson breathed. "I don't know. But whatever just happened, this is connected to it." A voice crackled through Dutch's headset, clear and cold. "Memphis Belle II, this is Sword Leader. What is your status?" Dutch climbed back to the cockpit, keyed the mic, "Sword Leader, Belle II. Status is uncertain. Did you see that aircraft? Long pause. Then, Bell 2, maintain radio silence until landing. Acknowledge. Sword Leader, I need to report. Radio silence. Bell 2. That is a direct order. Acknowledge. Dutch's hand tightened on the yoke. Acknowledged. The rest of the flight was silent. They crossed the channel at 1,600 hours, descended through clouds into English rain, touched down at Thorpe Abbotts at 1622. The tires barked on wet concrete. Propellers feathered. Engines shut down one by one. Before Dutch could unbuckle, a jeep was alongside the bomber. Military police. And officers in uniforms he didn't recognize, no insignia, just blank patches where unit designations should be. A colonel, not Hayes, someone new, stood in the rain looking up at the cockpit. Captain Vandermeer, order your crew to remain in the aircraft. Dutch popped the top hatch, stood up in the rain. Sir, we need to debrief. You will debrief to us. Alone. Your crew will remain here until we've secured the aircraft. Secured what, sir? We need medical for our tail gunner. Medical is en route. You will come with me. That is not a request. The interrogation room was windowless, lit by a single bulb. 3 officers sat across from Dutch. None identified themselves. None wore name tags. Tell us what you saw, the first officer said. So Dutch did. The disc. The light. The device in the compartment. Everything. They listened without expression. When he finished, the second officer slid a document across the table. Sign this. Dutch scanned it. It was a non-disclosure agreement. Not the standard post-mission classification. This was different. This stated that he had seen nothing unusual during the mission. That there had been no unidentified aircraft. That any suggestion otherwise was fabrication. That any discussion of this with anyone, crew, family, other pilots, would result in court-martial. I can't sign this, Dutch said. You can and you will. My crew saw it too. Every bomber in the formation. Your crew will sign similar documents. As will every crew that claims to have witnessed anything unusual. Which, according to official records, is no one. That's not possible. Dozens of crews. Sign it, Captain. Dutch looked at the document again. Looked at the 3 blank faces. Looked at the closed door with the MP standing outside. He signed. The third officer, who hadn't spoken until now, leaned forward. The device in your aircraft has been removed. The compartment has been sealed. As of 1,700 hours today, your mission to Schweinfurt is recorded as standard operation with no anomalies. Black Thursday will be remembered for its losses, not for anything else. Do you understand? No, Dutch said honestly. I don't understand any of this. You don't need to understand. You need to forget. They released him at 1945 hours. He walked across the empty field to his barracks. The Memphis Belle 2 was gone, not at her hardstand, not in any hangar. Just gone. In his bunk, he found Pops waiting. They took her, Pops said quietly. Flew her out an hour ago. Said she was being reassigned. Wouldn't tell me where. Did they talk to you? Yeah. Made me sign papers. Made me forget what I never saw in the first place. Pops lit a cigarette, his hands shaking. 30 years of working on planes, Captain. I've seen a lot of strange things. But I've never seen them disappear a whole damn bomber because of something that didn't happen. Dutch sat on his bunk, stared at the wall. What did we see up there, Pops? I don't know, sir. But whatever it was, someone wanted it real bad. Bad enough to put it on a B-17 without telling the crew. Bad enough to make sure nobody ever talks about what happened when that thing in the sky found it. Dutch thought about the disk, the light, the humming device, the impossible silence after. "Do you think it was ours?" he asked. "That device? Or theirs?" Pops exhaled smoke slowly. "I think it doesn't matter anymore. Because officially, Captain, you flew a routine mission today. You bombed Schweinfurt. You came home. That's all that happened." And what really happened? Nothing. Nothing happened. Nothing ever happens. They were assigned a new aircraft the next morning. Yankee Pride, a B-17G, fresh from the factory. No missions, no history, no soul. It had the same engines, the same guns, the same aluminum skin. But it wasn't the Memphis Belle II. That bomber, according to official records, had been transferred for technical evaluation. No base, no unit, no date of expected return. Just gone, erased from the roster as cleanly as Dutch's memory was supposed to be erased from his mind. But memory doesn't work that way. He flew 38 more missions before his tour ended in March 1944. 38 times over Germany and France and Belgium, 38 times through flak and fighters, 38 times returning with holes in the aircraft and holes in his formation where friends used to be. And every single time, at altitude, at 25,000 feet in the thin cold air, he found himself scanning the sky above, looking for disks, looking for light, looking for something that officially never existed. The crew never spoke about it. Not during the war. Not after. Not when they gathered in bars or at reunions or at the funerals that came with time and age. Henderson became an engineer in Cincinnati. Kelly opened a hardware store in Vermont. Ricci sold insurance in Boston. Simmons, the wounded tail gunner, lived quietly in Oregon with a wife who noticed how he sometimes stopped mid-sentence and stared at the sky. Dutch became a commercial pilot, flying D-XS across America, then 707s across oceans. He flew for 33 years and logged over 40,000 hours in the air. He never saw the disk again. He never stopped looking. In 1977, a researcher from the Air Force Historical Foundation contacted him. A young historian writing a book about the 100th Bomb Group, about the men who'd flown from Thorpe Abbotts, about Black Thursday. They met in a coffee shop in Atlanta. The historian had photos, mission reports, casualty lists. Everything documented, everything preserved. "I'm trying to track down a specific bomber," the historian said. "The Memphis Belle II. Serial number 42 to 30,177. Records show it flew from July 1943 to October 1943, then disappeared from all logs. No transfer paperwork. No maintenance records after October 14th. It's like it never existed after that date." Dutch stirred his coffee, said nothing. "I've interviewed 12 crews from the Schweinfurt mission. 8 of them mention unusual phenomena during the flight home. But there's no official record of any anomaly. Nothing in the debriefing reports. It's strange. Usually there's something, even if it's just a note saying, crew reports unidentified aircraft, probable hallucination from oxygen deprivation. But here, nothing. Complete silence. Maybe there was nothing to report," Dutch said carefully. The historian pulled out a photograph. "This is from a German reconnaissance plane. Taken over Belgium, October 14th, 1943. Look at the top of the frame." Dutch looked. There, barely visible against the blue sky, was a shape, a disk, hovering above a formation of B-17s. The Germans classified this, the historian said, called it a Wunderwaffe sighting, speculated it might be some kind of Allied secret weapon. The photograph was captured by American forces in 1945, filed away, and immediately classified again. I only found it because someone misfiled it in the General Reconnaissance Archive. Dutch studied the photograph. Even 34 years later, seeing it made his chest tight. "What do you think it was?" the historian asked. Dutch slid the photograph back across the table. "I think sometimes the war got to people. Altitude sickness, fatigue, fear. Men saw things that weren't there. But you were there. Your aircraft was one of the ones that reported." The historian checked his notes. "Actually, I can't find any report from your crew about that flight. In fact, I can't find your crew's debrief report at all. Every other bomber has one. Yours is missing." Like I said, maybe there was nothing to report. The historian published his book in 1979. It was thorough, detailed, respectful. He mentioned the Memphis Belle II in one paragraph, noting it as an unexplained administrative anomaly in an otherwise well-documented unit history. The photograph of the disc was not included. When Dutch called to ask why, the historian said it had been removed from the archive before he could make copies. "Someone must have realized it was misfiled," he said. "Probably reclassified properly. These things happen. These things happen." Dutch died in 2003, in his sleep, at the age of 83. His funeral was attended by 3 surviving crew members, Henderson, Ricci, and Martinez. They stood in the rain, old men now, watching the flag-draped casket being lowered into the earth. After the ceremony, they went to a bar, the same bar where they'd waited out the war decades before, though it had changed names 3 times since. They drank in silence for a while. Then Henderson said what they'd never said before. "Do you think it was real?" Martinez stared at his beer. "I don't know. Sometimes I think we all shared the same hallucination. Sometimes I think it was the most real thing that ever happened to us." "Dutch saw something in that compartment," Ricci said. "I know he did. He was different after that. Like he was carrying something he couldn't put down." "We all saw it," Henderson said. "The disc, the light, whatever it was. All of us. Crews in other bombers, too. You can't classify 100 men's memories out of existence." "Apparently you can," Martinez said. "Because officially, it never happened. There's no record, no photograph, no report. Just a missing bomber and a missing debriefing and a bunch of old men who remember something that the history books say didn't occur." They drank to that. To the missions that happened. To the mission that didn't. To the bomber that flew 53 missions and vanished on the 54th, even though the 54th never officially took place. In 2018, the National Archives declassified a batch of World War II documents. Among them was a memo, dated October 15, 1943, stamped "Top Secret" in faded red ink. Incident during mission to Schweinfurt, October 14, 1943. All after-action reports referencing anomalous phenomena are to be collected and destroyed. Crews are to be debriefed separately and instructed on proper classification protocols. Aircraft B-17 FS/N42 to 30,177, Memphis Belle II, to be immediately transferred to right field for technical analysis. Device aboard aircraft confirmed to be redacted and operating within acceptable parameters during incident. Foreign contact appears to have been redacted rather than hostile. Project continues under redacted oversight. No further dissemination authorized. The memo was signed by someone whose name had been carefully blacked out. A researcher found it while cataloging radar development documents. He posted it online, where it circulated for 3 days before being removed from every site that hosted it. The researcher's follow-up requests to the archives about the document were answered with a standard form letter. "We have no record of the item you're describing. If you believe you found a classification error, please submit Form 181B for review." He submitted the form. He never received a reply. Somewhere in a warehouse in Ohio or Nevada or Virginia, Somewhere in the vast buried memory of the military-industrial complex, there is a B-17F with 53 yellow bombs painted on her nose. Her serial number has been filed off. Her logbook has been destroyed. Her crew is dead or dying or keeping silent. But she's there. And behind her bomb bay, in a sealed compartment that was never on any blueprint, there is a device that once hummed in harmony with something that came from somewhere else, something that hung in the sky over Belgium on a cold October afternoon, something that connected two worlds for one impossible moment before the silence came down and the paperwork disappeared and the truth became classified at a level that doesn't officially exist. The Memphis Belle II flew 53 missions. On the 54th, she met something. And someone decided that the meeting, the mission, the memories, and the machine all had to disappear. They succeeded. Almost. Because stories don't die. They just go underground, waiting in the minds of old men and the margins of misplaced documents and the static-filled sky where bombers once flew. Waiting for someone to ask the right question. Waiting for someone to look up and see the disk that isn't there. Waiting for the truth that officially never was.